Yeah, because it's one of the outside ones, so it's just torn down the middle. It's not completely torn. It's like split longitudinally. Longitudinally? I'm not even sure that's a word. But anyway, so all I have to do is be careful with it for the next 6 to 12 weeks. But it's a pain.
That's crazy, man. Sorry, my cat's interrupting our
Oh, that's
conversation.
okay. It's a damn thing. The pain. Pain, pain, pain.
How bad
So,
is it?
oh, it just hurts. I just limp hard. So
Are you just
it's not a big
addicted
deal.
to
Like,
opiates yet?
no, I'm in California. I'm a cannabis medicinal patient. I don't take any other medicines. So, like, when you have that, you
You don't
don't
need the
need.
opiates.
I don't take anything. Yeah, I don't take I don't take any ibuprofen. I don't take anything at all. Nothing.
You could always cocktail them.
You could if they give you the opiates. Sometimes I used to save those for when I wasn't injured. Like, why am I taking these things now?
Yeah, exactly. You're wasting them. You're
Yeah,
wasting
wait
them
till
on
I
all
can
this pain
enjoy
you're
them.
having.
That's what I'm saying. We can suck up this pain, and I can have some fun with these things.
So
So,
it's been a little while since we last spoke, and a lot I think has been going on both in policing, but also in terms of our respective lives and projects. You just came off of the Vans Warp Tour, correct?
that is correct.
So speak a little bit about that experience, what you were doing on the tour with Veteran Stand, and everything else
So,
you've been doing the last couple of months.
oh God, I don't know how I could even talk about everything I've been doing in the last couple of months. I forget what I'm even doing half the time. But the idea behind our activation on the Transform Tour was to demonstrate building a platform for other voices to be heard and kind of building the infrastructure behind that so that if you wanted to do something in your community, it represents the example of what you should be doing, which is building things so other people can achieve, not trying to go in there at ways to point towards your attention or what your objective is. So you want to build literal stages for other people to be heard, and that's what we were doing on that. And so that's going to be a proof of concept now. So we have our video, we have everything going. So it looks like the Vans tour itself isn't going to be going out into the future, like beyond the next couple of years.
Mm.
So if we can put this together, and now that we learned that as a change of pace, to keep this going at a slower type of tour schedule, but now we have a proof of concept with the videos showing the virtual reality to get empathy and to just have things to bring people together and do it as pop-up events going around the country doing water is life and screen printing, bringing people together in like a unified voicing for other people to be heard. I don't know. So I think that that's where we're going in the future, and we use this proof of concept to show how we can pull it off and how we did it for this 42 cities in 55 days, which is
Wow.
another one of those logistical nightmares that I get myself into for some reason.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely a crazy schedule, especially in the hottest part of the summer.
Yeah, like who planned that? I want to know who planned to do the Vans Warp Tour in the middle of the dark summer because it was like that. You have thunderstorms and you get rained out. Half the days were like 112 degrees
Oh,
out there, so it was extremely rough. I didn't do the whole thing. I think only a handful of people did the exact whole thing from start to finish. So it's an incredible amount of work for everybody to do. I'm proud of them. We showed that we can do it at this crazy pace. So at a slower pace, it'll be much easier, and then we can get it rallied around sponsors and other people to help promote the different
yeah,
activism in their own way.
yeah. Let me just, for people who might not know what you mean when you talk about that virtual reality piece, can you explain what that is? Because I think that's a pretty cool element of what you're doing.
Yeah, this I was kind of skeptical of virtual reality things. I think like anybody else would be. And we ended up meeting a couple of people that had Oculus Rift systems and other advanced VRs. And when you go into them, there's certain things that can happen. There are some programs where if you're just depressed, you can't help but go into these programs and laugh and get happy because of the ridiculousness that happens in these environments. And then we have the ability to put someone in a situation that they never thought themselves to be in before, like a Syrian refugee camp and get some empathy things for being in there and seeing it directly in 360 videos for being at an activism action of gay pride in Israel we had going, or one for where you're underneath the water in virtual reality and you're with the tuna and like people are fishing and the boats are above and fish are getting caught and you're like down there with it to promote better fishing methods so you can see how that's done. And so there's a whole bunch of different ways we can use this VR, and we want to develop more advanced ways going forward in these pop-up events to partner with some people where we can really get some immersive experiences where people have time to kind of put themselves in something totally different where they would maybe be afraid to be in real life. But man, these systems wrap you in there, and it's like, I mean, it's there. You're there. If there's a scary house and there's a door, like you're inside your soul. You're like, I'm not going in that door. It's like, why am I not going in that door? That's ridiculous.
I think you need to make a VR experience for your zombie story.
Oh my gosh, that is such a great idea. I'm writing that down right now as we speak.
I want 5% on the revenue from that.
Yeah, totally. We have some really immersive ideas that we want to do with some of the shootings and police brutality incidences and more high profile things that we have data on, where we can put somebody there, put somebody in these experiences and take even more of that distance away that a screen can provide us. And if we go in a little bit deeper, I think we could do some soul searching things, and then you have some fun things like that. You're talking about that zombie story, which would be an incredible thing to put in VR. Now that you think about it, that's got me kind of tripped out. That would be so scary.
So I want to ask about two things, and I don't want us to do our usual thing and go for a million hours, but I wanted to first touch on what you had mentioned early on about this aspect of Veteran Stand, which is building a platform for other voices to get heard. And then, I wanted to ask you to comment a little bit on some of the issues that have been going on, including in Baltimore, in policing since we last spoke in person. But let's start with that platform issue, because obviously my project, StayUp.News, is a sort of similar effort of trying to find ways to document the voices of people and communities we don't generally hear from. And so I was wondering if you've got any sort of lessons in how you're going about creating that platform, because that's a difficult thing. And I know you've run into this issue where, media often wants to sort of pay attention to you and hear your voice when you're trying to get other people heard. And so how are you strategizing right now to make that an effective platform that keeps you sort of in the background, so to speak, so that those other voices are at the forefront?
I don't want to say that I have like any answers in this. This is still a learning experience that we're constantly learning on in activism and what to do and how to get our goals. I think the biggest issue we are having is, where do you find the people who have the drive when there's no like guarantee of reward? So that even happens for the voice who needs to be heard. So what is the point for the voice to be heard to go through all these efforts when they're just used to that falling apart and not actually being heard? I don't exactly know what we do with that yet, because we need to continue to demonstrate that we can get these voices effectively heard in order to get voices to be on the platforms and to really put themselves out there. Because being on a stage is a scary thing. Most people who want to be on a stage are in it for myopic reasons and the celebrityness of the stage, not the activism of the stage. So when activism and stages mix, period, I think we get into conundrums of not only figuring out which people are more in it for themselves versus are in it for the actual activism itself, and where that line even is, because I have to go out there and play that game of doing the media to get the attention and then step back when I'm there. So I try to always just step back when I'm there, but I don't have a real tactic for that yet. I mean, that's my weaponizing privileges idea. So while I have the privilege to do the media and to get these attention and help rally some people around, what what do I do with that in the most effective means? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's always a challenge. Do you find that in terms of the audience that they're receptive to hearing those other voices, or do they tend to want you front and center?
So this is a good reason why on the Vans tour it was good because nobody knows who I am.
Okay.
Um, so the audience there. So I'm going to say that that really depends on the audience.
Okay.
So if we are doing the Vans Warp Tour and we're with 18 to 20 some year old white kids that primarily listen to emo music and punk rock, like they don't know who I am. So just having
I
the
think you're pretty
stage
big in the
there.
emo scene, man. I don't
would,
know.
would
I
that
mean,
be weird
I'm
to
not an
find out?
expert on the emo scene, but I have a feeling you're pretty big there.
so, so I'm not on the emo scene, and so
So all
not
your
to really
emo
worry
scene
about that.
groupies were there.
Right. So I mean, I might have had on this whole tour maybe 10 people that recognized me right away.
Okay.
But if you go to Politicon like we did last week, then everybody does, and I
Mm,
would completely fail at that mission.
sure.
So I think maybe part of that responsibility and lesson is choosing those audiences wisely.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a challenge. And, you know, as
It's a total challenge.
you know, and as I think about the work we're doing, you know, and we both kind of have this mission of trying to get people's voices who aren't generally heard, it does strike me that part of the problem is that persons from our social location tend to one want to run to the forefront of like the activism, right? And then we also don't listen to anybody who doesn't essentially come from our social location. And so I think inevitably our mission is to convince people who come from social locations closer to ours, or even maybe who are even more privileged than us, that we're not the ones we're supposed to be talking to. And I'm not entirely sure how we're going to accomplish that, but it does seem like part of this is a issue at the level of society where, you know, a lot of us just don't want to hear people who won't speak our language or in our terms. And until we're sort of willing to do that, willing to say that it's okay for somebody to express themselves in their own way, and more importantly, though, that I can understand somebody's truth even if I can't otherwise relate to them, or if they don't say the things in the way that I would expect them to be said. I don't know how we move the needle on a lot of these issues, but the audience and the people in that audience who are really in a position to sort of push these issues further along seem to me the biggest obstacle, even though their heart seems to otherwise be in the right place because they're already, you know, in this conversation.
Yeah, don't get me started on the whole neoliberal or white liberalism thing. I get myself in enough trouble trying to talk about that topic, and it's just like that's what I need to do for activism is talk on those topics. And then when you talk on those topics, you're kind of ostracizing that peer group a little bit. So we have a delicate balance to try and pull to get our side to even listen for a second. So like I don't when you were talking when I'm thinking it's kind of changing this a macro level to this micro thing that I do. So in Veteran Stand, like I am the face of it, but the vast majority of this work has been done by Anthony Diggs.
Mm.
And so when we go out and we do things where it's me and him together, and he's a black guy with a big bushy beard and looks Muslim, so like you know all of the biases of the world are against him, and here he is a Marine combat vet that's really done most of this work.
And he's best known as the Riz's cousin.
Right, he is the Rizzo's cousin, yes. And so what I'll do with people is when they start talking to me and we're both standing there, I'll get that they'll talk to me and then I'll introduce them to Diggs, say he did all the work, and then boom, I disappear. And I force that person to talk to them. So
Mm.
that's kind of like what we're doing on the stage is to get that how do we get that spotlight that comes on us for trying to build those stages and then like doing the okey doke and splitting out so that the other people are still heard in that confusion. I don't know. Like that's it's a manipulation. Leadership is manipulation, and people don't like to hear it that way. But we are trying to manipulate an audience to broaden their horizons and overcome the most difficult thing there is for any educator to do, and that's change the mental schema of their learner.
Amen. Let me ask on the police side quickly because I don't want us to go too much longer. There's some interesting news coming out of Baltimore. A bunch of cases have been dropped by the state's attorney, Marilyn Mosby, and her office because a number of officers have been caught on video camera planting evidence. In one instance, they seem to have been caught because the video camera picks up 30 seconds of video from prior to pressing the record button. Because these cameras, for those who don't understand how a lot of these cameras work, is true for dash cam cameras on police vehicles and body worn cameras. They're essentially recording all the time. But until the officer press records, it doesn't save the information. And so when the officer presses record, it saves the previous 30 seconds and then records from the moment that the officer presses the button until they press stop again. And so in this gap, this buffer video, it showed the officer walking and putting something down, then walking away, turning it on, and then going to pick it up. And so I was wondering, now we've seen this case happen. A bunch of cases are being dropped. Have you thought at all about that and its implications for police community relations, especially in Baltimore City at a time when it is suffering? It looks like we're on pace to break another murder rate record here in our city.
Yeah, I've done a lot of thought about it. I did a video I recorded yesterday. Two of them I did yesterday that should be out pretty soon, going more kind of getting other people to try and look at this. But I guess ultimately it's just more frustration. Like, I know this stuff, and I hate to be that like autobiopic level. It's like, I know this. I keep telling people this. And when you keep not getting heard, and not getting heard means lives being lost and these situations progressing, it's incredibly frustrating. So the first three things that I'm thinking there are, what do I constantly say? It's incentives, incentives, incentives. If you incentivize employees to get these stats, then they will do anything to get the stats. That's what you measure them for. And if you have a system that only punishes the people that get caught, not the ones that create the incentivization system, then you just keep repeating the same cycle over again. So here we are, we want to punish the officer and not do anything about the system that's going to just replace the same damn officer doing the same damn thing. And what do I say about the body cameras? I put a tweet out in 2013. I retweeted it that I talked about. This is 2013. I was still in the police department. And I said, this is dangerous. Body cameras on cops? What are you talking about? This is mass surveillance on the citizens of America if you are not in control of these things. And so here you have it. When it's a tool, like I said, and whoever has control of that tool, it becomes their weapon. So yeah, we could catch one or two from time to time, but this shows us it is being used as the weapon of the police, not a tool of accountability for the citizens. Exactly like I said, what happened 4 damn years ago, and we keep seeing it happen over and over. And it goes back to training as well as being the third thing, that the answer is not more training. We keep, like, training is an element, I understand, but it's way more important on what we're training these guys to do. So another one I pointed out in the past is implicit bias training. So we keep saying we need more implicit bias training, not thinking about the outcome. The common outcome of implicit bias training is that the cops don't walk away saying, you're right, I should treat this black guy like I treat this white lady. They walk away thinking, oh my God, this white lady is just as dangerous as this black guy. I better shoot both of them. And so you see that coming out. And with the training of the cameras, we say, oh, we have to have cameras. We have to train them. So they know how the cameras work. They know the 30-second delay. They know what to do. And then when it's their tool, you have trained them to manipulate the tool against you. It is so unbelievably frustrating.
I mean, I think you're absolutely right. I was the only reporter who covered both the Maryland State Working Group studying body cameras back in 2014, as well as the Baltimore City Group that was studying the same issue, which went from like late 2014 into 2015, and made the initial recommendations for the pilot program that's currently in place in Baltimore. But what I took away from covering those two working groups was that I expected police departments increasingly to adopt this technology, not because it improves police accountability, but specifically for its evidentiary sort of benefits and investigative benefits. And there was even one officer who testified before the city working group and said, at this point, I wouldn't want to do this job without the camera on me. And so I think you're absolutely right that it is a tool, and that whoever controls the tool is able to use it in the way that they want to use it. And weaponizing it is certainly what we've tended to see police do with their tools. And we can all sort of remember the images of Ferguson and the military equipment trained on civilians protesting. But let me just ask this about the incentive issue, and then I'll let you go. Do you think that, based on your experience in policing and doing this work after your career ended, do you see the incentives changing anytime soon or ever?
This kind of ties back into our activism thing. I don't want to be a pessimist when it comes to activism and rallying activists. But I think we're getting to this point where we have decided, if you need this done, do it yourself. And we have a couple things in place that I think we will be able to do it ourselves within the next couple of years, regardless of what culture does. I think we have a spot here in California. We have the right people in place. We have the right town. And in this mayoral election, we have the right strategy. And I think this thing we're holding in our back pocket will make it inevitable one way or another by doing it ourselves. And I think there's a lot of places like Austin that holds really strong promise. It's about I think for us, it's about finding that one person who has that drive to make it happen and to do it themselves. It's not follow me. It's, for this particular topic, it's find the right person who will grind and not listen to the power structure that says they can't do it, because we can do it. All these systems and all these things telling us we can't, they're like depression and doubt. It's this voice inside of us that says we can't, but it's totally wrong. We can, and we will. I really believe that. So if you want to work hard where you are, you can totally do it if you're willing to grind and be fearless. And if time comes, we're going to show you that we can do it, and we'll do it ourselves.